God only knows where I would have been if I didn't bump into the Grateful Dead. Not bump into, commune with, and wonder the meaning of all the lyrics, the meaning of what the band was telling me about the nature of consciousness, about the nature of the spirit world. It's been, I don't know, 1.5 decades, more. The first thing that happened as a child was how song and films touched me in such a way to ask questions. So in this day and age right now, the effect of faith is the question. Or what is truth? Isn't that everyone's question? What is truth nowadays? With all the lies that are being fostered and let run wild. And in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the ideas that are obvious to those who can see and perceive and hear what's actually going on. If you've ever been in a crucible where the heat gets hot and you're sitting in it and you're trying to fathom the meaning of things. Anyway, what I'm trying to get to is the truth of the Bible. I'm not trying to get there. It's there. And because of my quandary of, as a young man, going, if all this stuff in the Bible is true, how are you going to get the message out, God? Like Jerry, I was a Catholic, or am raised one. And within the questions of following tradition or the actual text, man's traditions have gotten in the way of really understanding the text. So I'm going to cite certain things because my faith is a rock and roll kind of religion. I can talk about Genesis, the Bible, Genesis, and then I can talk about the band Genesis. And the Lamb lies down on Broadway. And within, and the guy's name is Gabriel, Peter Gabriel. That's a messenger angel. Messengers who, because of the questions of and the experiences of wondering out loud in my brain what this meant, what these words mean, what's the songs mean. eventually, or the timing of the Spirit was allowed me to dream inside the sound machine. I love to dream inside the sound machine. Well, for me, it all started with nightmares as a child, as a young man. Nightmares. You wake up from one of these nightmares, and you're like, what's that? And you'd be like awake and alert, like that was scary as hell. What the hell is it? And then it reached a point where I had a recurring nightmare that kept coming back. Same dream over the course of a year. Well after the dreaming period should have been over. I was 11. And it became a truth of what was that? What's the meaning of that? And, you know, so it was in the back of my mind. It's in the back of your mind. These things get lodged in, and I'm trying to understand and equate that with life. You know, like just what the heck was that? Like, I don't understand. But because God conceals things for his purposes till you can understand. I'm going to make some amazing claims here today, but the claim is that God's got everything under control. If I can do my part, you can do your part, we can do our parts, the whole thing will come together. So my love of the realizations that, you know, okay, the Dead movie just came out last week again, a couple of weeks ago, a week ago, and everyone, you know, Dead Nation's like, yeah. I was like 17 or 18 during the summer when I saw that movie, and that was before I ever saw the band. And it was like, we, a bunch of guys went to this thing. My friend became like deadhead and was just like, it started to grab him, and he was just like, this is just fun. I'm like, okay, let's check it out, you know. So when I went to the movie, there was the cartoon was, what the hell is that? What? Okay. And my coming away from that movie was as the impressions I got while I was watching that movie was, you can't feel the power of the music until you're there in the music. So it was watching something that was kind of informative, and what I noticed was, since I'm not, you know, I didn't even really know the music that much, but I saw that one hippie who had this glaze in his eyes, total peace and love in his eyes. I can notice tone of thought and facial recognition And I'm like, and he goes, they're like Jehovah's favorite choir. I'm like, that's a claim? Jehovah's favorite choir? What? What? Now, mind you, 1976, I'm 16, 77, I'm 17, 78, I'm 18, graduating high school. And there were Bobby Ware. Oh my God. Magical, amazing. And the most incredible thing that I also learned when I did a deep dive with my friend, he says, you're coming over and we're just gonna chill out, smoke some bongs, and you're gonna listen to this music. And we go to his house, and he's got all the albums. He's got all these magazines, Rolling Stone interviews with Garcia, and then there's all the liner notes inside all the records, and reading the inside covers on these albums. And there's so many things that happened in my brain to go, first I'm looking at all these albums, I'm like, St. Stephen, King Solomon's Marbles, I'm reading these song names, Samson and Delilah. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, what? Jehovah's favorite choir? What the heck? Well, now, also, while I'm questioning in my brain regarding, God, if this gospel is true, how is it gonna get out? There's scriptural readings, What happened when I would go to church, because it was part of the family thing, because my faithful mother and my father was going to church every Sunday, right through. So when I was young, I would just read these. If the mass was kind of like, okay, here we go again. I was an altar boy, I had to do all this stuff, but I would just read the readings. It'd be like, he who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says. I'm like, what kind of ears do you need to hear this? Like, a different kind of listening involved. And, Phil Lesh, I heard on the Deadcast and listened, and he was like, well, to be a really good listener, at one point he's like, well, if I'm not gonna become a musician, I'll become a really good listener. At least appreciate the music, it takes a listener and to appreciate the music, to understand and have a relationship to the music. Well, where am I going with this? So the trail of what my desire is to be the Grateful Dead hero. One who's going to try to bury Jerry, Phil, Hunter, these guys, and with living members still alive, and me taking so long to feel with enough wisdom and knowledge to actually know what I'm talking about regarding the scriptures and the Bible and interpretation. So I've been shadow boxing the apocalypse with the band well, my first show was 78, day before I went to college, my freshman year of college, going up to UMass, and out of the zoo mass, I came, at the end of my first year, the Grateful Dead played my spring concert in Amherst. I guess that was 79, spring. But my second show, my friends like, go check it out, right? So my second show was Springfield, and I was on the wrestling team up at UMass, and during the 6-week break of winter break, 8-week break, whatever, we're doing double wrestling practices, and I shot down to Springfield and caught my second show. And on the show, well, floating around, I'm a restless dancer, walking around, checking out the place, listening to the music, trying to listen to what they're talking about. And Bob Weir was singing that line where it's Bakersfield. And I swore I heard Fakersfield. And Bob is so intuitive and just an amazing shadow boxer of the apocalypse. And he looked at me and I said, Fakersfield. He goes, yeah, that's what I said. Fakersfield. You're fake. I'm like, what? The fuck is he talking about? I'm like, I come out of the show. I call up Keith, the guy who dragged me to the dead. And I go, I swear he was saying Fakersfield. He goes, oh yeah, they fuck with you, man. Oh yeah, they fuck with you. I'm like, what? So let's go to Samson and Delilah. The riddle in Samson and Delilah that Samson presented to the Philistines was, hey, out of something strong, out of the mouth of the eater comes something to eat. And something sweet comes out. Well, he got faked out by his Philistine betrothed wife. That didn't happen, but in the story. But it was a few years later where bees made honey in the lion's head. And Bob, again, there was a moment, we're talking about there's that moment where we caught, and he's like, the bees made honey in the lion's head. So they've been making honey in my head. And this is the story of the Lion King, where he's out in the desert and he's running around with the, and he finally comes back to the tribe and says, "Oh my goodness, kingdom is falling apart." And anyway, so I'm the Lion King, okay, in a cartoon. And the original cartoon was a guy from, guys riding the motors, gets hit. The Statue of Liberty busts through the jail cell, and the dude gets on the Harley or whatever and drives, and the feet, and So there's so many different revelations that researching what was underneath it all, inside it, and abounds about it. So if we get back to Genesis and Genesis 6 and the fallen angels, and the question of when you shadow box the apocalypse, you realize that this term, if you can think of it in many different ways, to shadow box is, let's say this: we do not fight against flesh and blood. We fight against what? Spiritual. The spirit world. The, principalities and of the netherworld, or however you would want to describe it. So that's part of the amazing grace of getting the gift of perceiving. So back to the shadow boxing, and so also shadow boxing the apocalypse would be taking the gloves off and actually boxing, but the faith of if any of you have no sin upon his hand, let him cast a stone at me for playing in the band. And